Hey, it's Kevin DeWitt here. In this video, I'm going to do a run through of a voiceover session that I did. So a client came to me and asked whether I could do a cleanup of a voiceover and also video that so that he could learn from what I did and apply that and maybe even create himself some presets, etc., to go forward with his own voiceovers. So that's sort of what I have done here. Now, he stated that he has access to iZotope RX and Ozone. Now, he has access to Ozone 7. I'm using Ozone 8 in this, but I'm not using any features that really aren't available in 7, so the result should be pretty much the same. I've got the advanced version of both, so I'm not sure at this stage whether some of these features may not be available to him, but I will find out once this video is complete if there's anything he cannot do. But the point of this is to show what I did to the audio track anyway, and maybe give some ideas of how you can improve your voiceover material. So let's start off first with the first thing I did was I decided to drag this straight into RX, and he sent me a WAV file, so that was good. And it's actually pretty good quality. It's in another language, so I don't understand a word that's said, but hopefully my processing will not be impacted by the fact that I don't understand it. So this is what we have to start with.
Prepare-se para conhecer a nova loja da sua cidade. Uma nova loja ainda melhor para oferecer a você móveis e eletros de grandes marcas com preços imperdíveis e condições facilitadas.
So it goes on like that for a little bit. We've got a section here, so it's probably not the whole audio that he's done, but he's given me a sample of it to work on. So the first thing I did was I just noticed here it's not very loud. I can't really hear it too obvious, but you can see there's a line here. If I highlight it here, you can see this line here. And what that works out to be is it's about 60 hertz here. So it's actually a 60 hertz hum that's going on there. But as I said, it's not really audible, but the fact that you can visually see it, I thought it would be good to clean it up. So what I actually did was I used the de-hum module in RX, and the first thing I did was I just got it to suggest. So, I mean, and if it's sort of its default state, it sits up here, and if I'll just reset everything back to default. So this is what it looks like in its default state in the advanced version. So the first thing I did was I just went and clicked on suggest. So then it analyzes the audio and it actually looks for anything that it thinks is hum. And what it's actually done is it's changed it to free mode, and it's decided that it's actually at 60.33 hertz. Now, the number of harmonics is obviously quite critical to this because, as you can see, usually when you get a lot of hum, you'll see lots of harmonics, which is basically you'll see this same line repeated over and over again up the frequency scale. And that's based on this line. So that's how many harmonics of this 60 hertz. Now, you can see a very faint one there, but it's so small, I'm not even going to bother with that. So what I actually did was I reduced it right down to just one harmonic. So basically all we're going to do is we're going to remove just this one frequency spot here, which is 60.33. So with it set to the 1 and it's detected at 60.33, then process it, and what we end up with is that you'll see the line has now sort of gone. It's smeared it a little bit there, and we've got to that point there. So if you could hear the hum before, if you listen now, it should be gone.
Prepare-se para conhecer a nova loja da sua cidade. Uma nova loja ainda melhor para oferecer.
Okay, so the next step that I wanted to do was to tackle the mouth clicks. So this is something that obviously happens with everybody. Everybody has mouth clicks, the saliva, spit as you're talking. A lot of people can find it very distracting. So I use the mouth declick and I set a sensitivity of 7, frequency skew -2, and click widening of 5. And if we actually want to hear what it's doing, if I put it in output clicks only and then just do a preview, you'll hear what it's detecting as mouth clicks. So there's a fair bit there, but if you found that was a little bit too heavy, then obviously you just reduce your sensitivity. Clicking that little box there is a good way to actually work out how much you're impacting this, because if you do it in preview mode this way, sometimes you can't get a full impact of what it is you're taking away.
Prepare-se para conhecer a nova loja da sua cidade. Uma nova loja ainda melhor para oferecer a você móveis e eletros de grandes marcas com preços imperdíveis e condições facilitadas.
And I just find the mouth declick here is a nice way to get rid of some of those annoying mouth clicks. Obviously, that's what it's done, but it also it sort of warms up the vocal a little bit as well, because it takes a little bit of that high end sort of sizzle out of your voice there. Which is obviously, if I do that output clicks, you'll hear what it's going to remove. So you can hear it's all that little clicky, pointy sizzle sound on top. So again, we go and process that. And now we end up with this.
Prepare-se para conhecer a nova loja da sua cidade. Uma nova loja ainda melhor para oferecer a você móveis e eletros de grandes marcas com preços imperdíveis e condições facilitadas.
So the next step that I wanted to do was to do a bit of de-essing, just to make sure that none of the S's jump out and we've got them under control. So we open the de-ess module and I've got it set to spectral mode, -12, cutoff frequency of 2K here, -20 on this scale here, so sort of just below the pink noise heading into the brown, 100% spectral shaping, and a speed of fast. So again, we can have a listen for our outputs. And again, I always suggest you do this just so you get a really good idea of what this plugin is doing, and you can adjust it if it's doing too much or if it's not doing anything at all. So you can see it pulling down there, and you can hear the little noises coming out there.
Prepare-se para conhecer a nova loja da sua cidade. Uma nova loja ainda melhor para oferecer a você móveis e eletros de grandes marcas com preços imperdíveis e condições facilitadas.
So we're going to process that. That's going to get our S's under control there. So now our next, where we are now.
Prepare-se para conhecer a nova loja da sua cidade. Uma nova loja ainda melhor para oferecer a você móveis e eletros de grandes marcas com preços imperdíveis e condições facilitadas.
So we've got our S's slightly under control, but we haven't gone too far that we start to make anybody sound like they've got a lisp or anything like that. We don't want to do it too heavy, but we want to make sure that they're not sticking out too much there. Okay, so the next item I wanted to tackle was the deplosives, just to make sure that there's no plosives coming through. And if you don't know what a plosive is, it's basically when you do a P, it represents there. So if I was to do it in here and try to represent it, it's going to be if I go P, and you get that big gust of wind hit the microphone and it sort of booms out there. Now, there's nothing massive in this audio file, but as I said, he wanted to have a sort of process to work on all of his audio going forward for his voiceovers. So my suggestion is to use the plosive, because there are going to be instances that you're going to have it. And I do particularly have an annoyance that I get frustrated with some podcasts that I listen to that have a lot of per as you're listening. It's just, especially if you listen to it on something that has some bass end, probably not so big a deal if you're listening on your iPhone or something like that. But if you put something and you're listening to a podcast through some speakers, when you get those, they can be really distracting because they really hit on the bass of your speaker range there and can be really annoying. So again, we've got our sensitivity here for the plosives at 7. We've got a strength of 6 and a frequency limit of 100. So what we are doing is we're definitely targeting the low end. We don't want to start pulling out too much of anything above 100 hertz. We want to leave some naturalness to the vocals, because you still want to get the sense of that P. You just don't want to have the boom that comes out below that. So if we do a preview.
Prepare-se para conhecer a nova loja da sua cidade. Uma nova loja ainda melhor para oferecer a você móveis e eletros de grandes marcas com preços imperdíveis e condições.
So what you'll probably see when I process this is some of this low end here will start to disappear. So the darker stuff is where plosives usually come in. Not darker, sorry, the brighter colors is where the frequencies are. So a lot of this low end stuff here could be plosives. And when we apply it, you'll see they all sort of disappeared there. So we definitely cleaned up the low end a lot there.
Prepare-se para conhecer a nova loja da sua cidade. Uma nova loja ainda melhor para oferecer a você móveis e eletros de grandes marcas com preços imperdíveis e condições fáceis.
Okay, and the next step I wanted to do was just have a bit of a play with some EQ just to see if there's anything I wanted to get out of here and remove. Now, this is sort of the EQ that I ended up with. So I'll just preview it and bypass it, but then what I'll do is I'll show you the frequencies that it started taking out.
Prepare-se para conhecer a nova loja. Prepare-se para conhecer a nova loja da sua cidade. Uma nova loja ainda melhor para oferecer a você móveis e eletros de grandes marcas com preços imperdíveis e condições facilitadas.
Now, it's very subtle what I've done here, so let's just go through each one. Okay, so we controlled our plosives, but then what I also wanted to do is just make sure we put a bit of filter to get rid of any other rumble that's down low. And really 80 hertz is a good sort of level here for a voiceover, unless you've got an extremely deep, boomy voice and you want that boomy sound, then you might want to go a bit lower with this. But if you're just going for a natural sounding voice that's not too low, not too boomy, then, something like 80 hertz is pretty good there. But, adjust that to what you feel is appropriate for your voice. So then the next one was so now what I was doing was just looking for any little frequencies that I thought maybe were getting a little bit too much, a little bit too annoying, or creating a sound that I wasn't happy with. So if we just go one at a time, and what I'll do is I'll boost it so you can hear the frequency that I have pulled out.
Prepare-se para conhecer a nova loja da sua cidade. Uma nova loja ainda melhor para oferecer a você móveis e eletros de grandes marcas.
So I just found that one was a little bit annoying there. So I just decided to reduce that a little bit. I'm making very small moves with this because there's nothing majorly wrong with the vocal. I'm just trying to, I guess, tweak it a little bit to perfect it. So I'm just doing little EQ cuts here, nothing severe, because it's not bad. You could just leave it as is, but I'm obviously trying to tweak it as best as I can. So that was there. It's about 200 hertz. So that just gets a little bit of that low end sort of boxy sound there that you could hear. Now the next one is sitting just below 400 hertz. So this is sort of a renowned frequency for getting a sort of boxy cardboard sound to it.
Prepare-se para conhecer a nova loja da sua cidade. Uma nova loja ainda melhor para oferecer a você móveis e eletros de grandes marcas com preços
And again, another small move. This one was a little bit lower there, but you could hear that sort of sound there, and there was a bit of resonance there that was sort of not quite pleasant that I wasn't happy with there. Bands 4 and 5 I'm not using. The next one was band 3. This one here, I just wanted to take a little bit out of the just below 5K. Just found that one a little bit piercing. Just take
Prepare-se
a little
para
bit out.
conhecer a nova loja da sua cidade. Uma nova loja ainda melhor para oferecer a você móveis e eletros de grandes marcas com preços
Again, just a tiny bit there. I didn't want to make the vocal sound too dull, but I just wanted to make sure I was controlling that little part a bit even more. And then I just added a little bit of a shelf up top here, 8K and above, just to make sure that we hadn't dulled the vocal out too much. And we add a little bit of, tiny little bit of brightness and some air on top of the vocal there.
Prepare-se para conhecer a nova loja da sua cidade. Uma nova loja ainda melhor para oferecer a você móveis e eletros de grandes marcas com preços imperdíveis e condições facilitadas.
So you can see there when I bypass it, it's very, very subtle. So not much at all there. So we'll apply our EQ. So now we are at this stage.
Prepare-se para conhecer a nova loja da sua cidade. Uma nova loja ainda melhor para oferecer a você móveis e eletros de grandes marcas com preços imperdíveis e condições facilitadas.
So the next thing I wanted to do was just run through the loudness control here, just to give a bit of boost this and just analyze the loudness of it. I had it set to minus 18.5 and a true peak of minus 0.3. I just didn't want this obviously peaking over or anything like that. So we apply that, we get a little bit of a boost.
Prepare-se para conhecer a nova loja da sua cidade. Uma nova loja.
So the loudness one it's not leveling, it's not doing anything like that. It's just bringing, it's analyzing the entire vocal and it's bringing it up to a certain loudness level. So it's not normalization or anything like that. It's actually just bringing it up to a level. Okay, and then now the next thing I did is, again, this is very subtle. It was not something I could hear too much, but you can obviously see that there's a bit of noise here. Very low amount of noise. It's something that you could ignore if you wanted to. But I thought, since I can see it, we may as well tackle it. So what I did was I just selected that sort of region there, and then I went through the spectral denoiser. And I set it to a D setting here. Basically left most of this stuff to this state here, but I had the noise brought up, the amount of noise reduction up and the tonal down, which helps because what it does is it tackles more the noise side as opposed to the audio signal. But also what I did was, because I've got that part selected, I then did a learn and it came up with what it thought was there. So now if we just output the noise, you probably won't hear it because it is very, very low. Okay, so it's pretty much, it's unhearable, but we're already in this tool, so why not go for the perfect level here? So then I basically process that, and you see there what happens is all that noise goes away and it clears up some of the noise from within the vocal itself as well. So again, now we're sort of getting into perfecting here. Now, the next thing I wanted to do was I opened up the spectral repair and just had the settings here. So I've got a weight of 0, I've got it set to horizontal, bands 512, region 100, and a strength of 2. So not massive, just a little bit there. And what this is going to do is it's going to repair areas of problems. But what I actually did was, so I opened it up, made sure I set it, but then I actually turned on the instant process. And what the instant process does is when you have it set to attenuate, anything that I highlight with these tools will automatically get attenuated. So what I did was, because we've removed some noise, you can see there's some obvious little parts here that have now come out. So what I did was I just tackled some of them. So I basically highlighted this spot here, and that attenuated those little noises and clicks and stuff that were there. I then did another spot here, cleaned up a little bit there, a little bit on the end there. Now, whether this is essential or not, because these really could be trimmed, you could trim the ends, you could even cut these yourself and chop the audio up and just delete those parts. But again, we're in the tool, so why not do it? A little bit more cleanup on that part there, a little bit of cleanup on the front. And again, some more there. So each time I do it, I'm attenuating another 2, level 2, and then just a tiny one there because it was a little pop there. And that's pretty much what I've done. So that's the entire RX chain there.
Prepare-se para conhecer a nova loja da sua cidade. Uma nova loja ainda melhor para oferecer a você móveis e eletros de grandes marcas.
So as soon as I've done all of that, I then, and what you could do is you can actually replicate that in a chain. So if we scroll up here, we can go module chain, and this is what I do for my own vocals here. I have a chain set up. Now, I didn't necessarily follow this chain for this, but the ideas are all there, and this is what I'll do, say, for a chain where I'm only doing voice. I will get rid of the mouth to clicks, DS, plosive, EQ, and loudness. And with all those turned on and all of the settings pre-programmed, I can just open an audio file and click on process, and it will run through each one of these on the entire audio track. And I can just walk away and let it do it. So if you're doing constant voiceovers and you've got the same mic, the same location, everything else, you can work this out ahead of the game on your first one and work out all your settings and then put it into a module chain, and then it's there for every time that you do a new voiceover. You can run through this and you'll get pretty much 90% of your audio perfect, and there might be just a few things you might need to fix up afterwards or something like that, but generally this will work for most of it because you've worked it out for your voice and your microphone, etc. So once we've done that, then I just save the either save it out or export it to a WAV file, save it in a location. So in this case here, I saved it and called it RX Cleanup. And the reason I wanted to do that is because then I wanted to go into Ozone and just do a tiny little bit of a tweak here, because you can see here the vocal is still quite dynamic. I've done nothing really about the dynamics of the vocal. And again, this is going to depend on your vocal because you might have used a compressor on the way in or you may not have. So what I wanted to do in this one was just have another listen. And so I loaded the RX cleanup file into Ozone 8. And again, as I said, I'm not doing anything really special in here that's different for Ozone 8. It might look slightly different, but it can be applied to Ozone 7. So what I first started off with is I decided I wanted to do some dynamics. I wanted to do some compression, but the traditional compressor for Ozone is a multi-band compressor. Okay, so if we're in this mode here, normally what you'll see is you'll see by default multiple bands. So you might have 4 bands and they'll be stretched, they'll have points everywhere. So the first thing I did was I removed all of the bands except for one. So I've turned this multi-band compressor into a normal single band compressor. And then what I did was I set the ratio and I set it to 4:1. I wanted a fair amount of compression in this just to take some of the peaks off. I'm not using the limiter because you can see here I've got the limiter set at 0. I've got a fairly fast attack just so we can make sure we grab those those transients of the words to level them out a bit. And the release is sort of a medium, 100 milliseconds there. And I set the threshold to a level that's giving me what sort of gain reduction I want. So if we have a listen now.
Para conhecer a nova loja da sua cidade. Uma nova loja ainda melhor para
You
oferecer a
can
você
see the
móveis
compression
e
we're getting
eletros de
there and the
grandes
waveform
marcas
as it's
com
going over.
preços imperdíveis e condições facilitadas.
Now, if we switch our mode over to this graph, you'll see the results of what it's doing.
Para conhecer a nova
You can see
loja da
where
sua
it's pulling
cidade.
down and letting
Uma
go.
nova loja ainda melhor para oferecer a você móveis e eletros de grandes marcas com preços imperdíveis e condições facilitadas. Para conhecer a nova loja da sua cidade. Uma nova loja ainda melhor para oferecer a você móveis e eletros de grandes marcas com preços imperdíveis e condições facilitadas.
So you can see we're pulling down some of the peaks there. So we're starting to level the vocals out a bit. So we're going to get a bit more of an even voiceover. We don't want too many highs and low peaks. We want some dynamics in the vocals. We don't want to lose the impact of the emotion of the story or whatever you're telling. But we want it to also play well if you're in a noisy environment or you're driving your car and you're wanting to listen to a podcast or whatever else. You don't want to have words disappearing. So we need to sort of have some control in the vocals there to just keep things nice and level. But while I was in here, I noticed that it was starting to sound a little bit boomy in certain sections there as well. So I actually decided to fire up a dynamic EQ. I didn't want to do a static EQ and just take certain frequencies out. I wanted it to actually respond to the voice and do some ducking of certain frequencies as the vocal was happening and it was starting to peak. So the dynamic EQ works very similarly to a normal EQ, except it only reduces the EQ if we're doing a cut, which I'm doing in this stage. It only reduces it when it goes above a certain threshold. So it's like a cross between an EQ and a compressor. It sort of merges the two functions together perfectly. So we pull down an EQ range when it goes above a certain threshold with this set attack and release sort of time. So I've got a fast attack, fast release, letting go. And I set the threshold based on what I was hearing. And the first step I did was find the frequency that I wasn't really impressed with. And the way I do that is I will always, I'll do a boost first. So if we have a listen.
Para conhecer a nova loja da sua cidade. Uma nova loja ainda melhor para oferecer a você.
So you sort of got that, it's sort of a bit of a low end, but not real low, but it's a bit boxy and sort of it's a weird sort of sound there. I'm not really happy with that.
Para conhecer a nova loja da sua cidade. Uma nova loja ainda melhor para oferecer a você móveis e eletros.
And the amount this pulls down is partly about how much gain reduction you do. So you can do really big gain reductions, and obviously you can adjust the width, the Q as well,
Para
which will
conhecer a
make
nova loja da
that'll make it pull it down a lot more. But the threshold is determining when it pulls the EQ down. And obviously the gain is determining how much by. But you can see, I can have it way down here and it's not going to pull down way there. It's going to pull down a bit. But so depending on where you place it, if you want to do less, you put it
para
there.
conhecer a nova loja da sua cidade. Uma nova loja ainda melhor para oferecer a você móveis e eletros de grandes
So if I take the
marcas
threshold
com
up,
preços imperdíveis e
it'll do
condições
pretty much nothing.
facilitadas.
So depending on what you need to do, you can have it set so that 90% of the time it does nothing, but it just pulls down in a couple of little spots there.
Para conhecer a nova loja da sua cidade. Uma nova loja ainda melhor para oferecer a você móveis e eletros de grandes marcas com preços imperdíveis.
And after doing that, and originally I had it at the back here just while I was playing with it, and then I decided, obviously, because I am now affecting the frequencies and I'm pulling some out, I wanted to do that before the dynamics so that these frequencies that are maybe peaking up and getting a bit too much are ducked and pulled out cleaned up before we go into our dynamics. So our dynamics now is compressing without those unwanted frequencies in there. So with that there, we've then still got
Para
our
conhecer a nova loja da sua
dynamics
cidade.
here.
Uma nova loja ainda melhor para oferecer a você móveis e eletros de grandes marcas com preços imperdíveis.
And that's basically the end result we've got there. I've just got this volume pulled down so it's not too loud, but normally it was at 0. So my end result of the voiceover sounds like this.
Para conhecer a nova loja da sua cidade. Uma nova loja ainda melhor para oferecer a você móveis e eletros de grandes marcas com preços imperdíveis e condições facilitadas.
So that's my voiceover processing for this particular voiceover processing. As I said, you adjust this to suit your environment and everything that you're hearing. In this case, this is what I heard and this is what I've got. So I've got to send it off to the client. Hopefully the client's happy and hopefully they're happy with the work that I've done. They'll see this video and we are hopefully all good to go. So thank you for watching. Hopefully this has been helpful. If you've got any comments, leave them below and I'll catch you in the next one.